thank you for those on the line for making time to join our discussion today, where we're going to introduce the new Energize Delaware Business Technical Assistance Program. My name is Brian McCarter, and I'm CEO of Sustainable Real Estate Solutions, and SRS is the administrator of the Business Technical Assistance Program. I'm joined by Drew Slater. I think many of you already know, but Drew is the executive director of Energize Delaware. And Energize Delaware, of course, is the sponsor of the Business Technical Assistance Program. And Drew will start us off in terms of providing a little introduction about Energize Delaware and some insight in the background of the launch of this exciting new Business Technical Assistance Program. So, Drew.
Great. Thank you. And thank you all for joining this afternoon. As Brian said, my name is Drew Slater. I'm the Executive Director of Energize Delaware. Energize Delaware, so we're actually called the Delaware Sustainable Energy Utility, but we do business as Energize Delaware. We were set up in 2007 through the state legislature and have more than 20 programs. At last count, it was about 25 programs. And so what we saw throughout our programs is that, one gap in the service was small business, and really trying to help small businesses. And then we kind of got into this question of what is a small business. And so we've decided to try and provide business technical assistance as well as our small business program that we're working on, and really to kind of fill the gaps. And so the idea here is to be able to use the EPIC tool that Brian and SRS have, and Brian will go into that in a minute, as well as potentially use rebates from Energize Delaware and our commercial loan program, which offers 100% of the cost. We want to see one-to-one energy savings. It's a 4% interest rate. Our interest rates did not change when the interest rates went sky high, and so you're probably used to seeing 6, 7, 8, 10%. So it's 100% long-term financing. The term is 20 years, and it's up to $2 million. Anything above $2 million would have to go to the board for their approval. So really just trying to find unique ways to promote energy efficiency in businesses, and then being able to utilize and leverage the financial resources that we have through our commercial loan program. And with that, Brian, I'll let you go ahead and talk about the EPIC program.
Okay, great. Thank you. So those of you that haven't run across SRS in the past, a few words of introduction about us. Since 2010, Sustainable Real Estate Solutions, or SRS for short, we've worked on a nationwide basis and have built a reputation nationwide administering commercial building energy efficiency programs for state and local governments. That experience includes providing technical assistance on small and mid-sized building energy efficiency retrofit projects, which number over 10,000 projects at this juncture over the past decade or so. Specific to our work in Delaware for Drew's team, since 2019, we've provided technology-enabled technical assistance to participants in Energize Delaware's CPACE program, or the Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy Program. If that acronym is not familiar to you, that is a program that also brings long-term 100% financing to energy efficiency projects in the state of Delaware. And specific to the Business Technical Assistance Program, to support small and mid-sized building owners and their contractors to estimate the energy savings, the emissions reduction, and the key financial impacts of alternative energy improvements, we will be using our Energy Performance Improvement Calculator, or EPIC platform. And EPIC is a software data and analytics tool that we have developed over the past number of years, using a lot of the data and experience that I've mentioned over the past decade, deploying technical assistance services to small retrofit projects. And in short, what it enables is a cost-benefit analysis for these types of projects that typically has only been limited to large seven-figure type projects that have enough um, funding on the table to hire energy engineers, auditors, and so forth that can do what is typically a timely and costly energy audit process. So unfortunately, small building projects, given the typical dollar size, typically haven't had that benefit available to them. And generally speaking, what that means is they can't really evaluate the return on investment of high efficiency equipment investment, because without understanding the energy savings, it's difficult to justify the price premium associated with the high efficiency equipment. So as Drew was alluding to a moment ago, that's really the problem that we're aiming at here, to bring that level of analytics to a building owner and their supporting contractors to help see the benefit of high efficiency equipment investment. And in our experiences, often building owners are surprised to learn that the combination of high efficiency equipment and the enhanced energy savings that equipment produces, coupled with what Drew was just describing, which is a very unique benefit in the state of Delaware, with Energize Delaware's low interest, i.e. 4%, long-term up to 20-year term financing. That combination makes for a compelling investment opportunity, and not always, but often, the superior investment opportunity than just say standard, minimally code compliant equipment, which unfortunately is the way many building owners, small building owners, approach these projects, because again, they have a blind spot to what the energy savings impact is, so they just don't have the requisite information to make an ROI based decision. So that's really how we are coming about this business technical assistance program. And to Drew's credit and the team at Energize Delaware, they have invested in this program such that at no cost, the building owners and the contractors can now engage our technical assistance team and take on that evaluation of alternative energy improvement scenarios. And I thought I would just, on this slide, point to a few of what we see as the most common or more typical drivers to engage with building owners and their contractors. Although this list is not necessarily comprehensive and is not, the service wouldn't necessarily be limited to this, but I think this covers a lot of the major ground. So first off is like-for-like equipment upgrades. So think of the typical scenario, right? A building has HVAC equipment that's 15, 20 years old, which is to say it's reached the end of its effective useful life. And therein lies the building owner entering in the due diligence phase to determine, what's the optimized investment here to upgrade my aged out HVAC equipment. That typically involves looking at, as I was referring to earlier, standard efficiency equipment, minimally code compliant equipment. What's the cost of that equipment versus high efficiency equipment? Of course, the high efficiency equipment will come with some level of price premium, and therein begs the question: is there a return on investment, right, for that higher efficiency equipment and the price premium that comes with it? And in short, this business technical assistance program is designed to help answer that question for the building owner. In those HVAC upgrade projects, of growing interest is the electrification of the space heating systems, right? So think there you have a building that has gas-fired, natural gas-fired space heating system. And in this due diligence process, the building owner seeks to understand, well, if I convert to an all-electric heating system via heat pumps, or maybe even high efficiency heat pumps, what's referred to as VRF or variable refrigerant flow technology, what is the cost impact and what's the energy savings cost impact of converting from gas to all electric heat? And again, the service will be designed to help answer that question. The other opportunity is in the course of upgrading a HVAC system, it's often timely to take a look at other potential needs or energy improvements that could be opportunities at the property. For example, LED lighting. If the building hasn't had an LED lighting upgrade in, say, 6, 8, 10 years, most likely there's a compelling energy savings opportunity there in replacing the lighting. And the lighting, as most of you likely well know, is typically has a short payback period, where HVAC systems tend to have longer payback periods. So the notion of adding a short-term payback measure like the LED lighting can help pay for, so to speak, right, the HVAC equipment. Other considerations might be upgrading the automated building management or control systems and evaluating the building envelope. Is insulation, new windows, new roofing, are they opportunities that would be timely to integrate in a more comprehensive project? And solar PV, of course, then comes to the fore, right? So as you're thinking about energy efficiency measures, let's take the HVAC typical driver, which is going to have the impact of lowering the electricity baseline, right, after the installation of that energy efficiency measure. Then the question is, what would be the economic impact of right-sizing a rooftop solar PV system that takes into account, the impact of the energy efficiency measures? This is an area where we see, a current, speaking of problems to solve in the market, one of the areas that we see in our role providing technical assistance in various states is often a building owner that's looking at comprehensive projects, including solar. Let's take the case of HVAC, lighting, and solar PV. Typically, that building owner would be engaging with 3 separate contractors. And it's a challenge to have those contractors share data with one another, right? In other words, the solar PV contractor would typically be working in their lane. They would be evaluating the size on the roof, system size that the roof could accommodate. They would be evaluating the annual electricity consumption. But it's rare that we see them taking into account the energy savings impact that the HVAC system or lighting system would create, and therefore there's this risk that the solar PV system could be oversized and not be, aware of the energy efficiency lower baseline impact. So that's another area that we will be focused on in the comprehensive projects, is using the data analytics to ensure a right-sized or optimized solar PV system. And in some building owners, again, this notion of net zero is emerging, right? Where the mantra in the market is efficiency first, right? Where you make the building more efficient with the opportunities that are available in your building, and then right-size that PV system to accommodate the remaining electricity load. And that's an area of focus for this program as well. Finally, financing options. Experience in the small to mid-sized building owner sector is that most building owners in the sector do not have deep capital budgets. Most of certainly the HVAC projects would generally be viewed by that sector as capital intensive projects. So they are keen to learn about the different financing options. Of course, as Drew has mentioned, the run-up in interest rates over the past year to 18 months or so has made that option look less and less attractive, frankly. But nonetheless, this unique opportunity exists via the Energize Delaware's low-interest long-term loan program, where projects that qualify, and one of the qualification measures is that the project achieves a savings to investment ratio greater than 1, which is to say the estimated energy savings of the improvements to be installed outweigh the cost of the equipment, the cost to install the equipment, and the financing fees over the term. If that project can achieve a savings to investment ratio greater than 1, then it will qualify for the Energize Delaware 4% interest rate, long-term up to 20 years. And typically the term length is set to be commensurate with the weighted average useful life of the improvements that are to be installed. So in sum, this business technical assistance program will help the building owners and the contractors put together those cost-benefit analyses with and without financing options to build a level of confidence within the building owner as they're conducting their due diligence that they have insight to the information that they need to make a confident decision on what's the optimized project, relative to their building needs and their financial situation, and proceed accordingly. And the result is, again, I'll share these with you in a few moments. Our EPIC software data and analytics tool will generate various reports depending on the type of project, but in sum, it will integrate the key equipment specifications and costs that a contractor would be proposing. That will have the benefit from the property owner's perspective of providing this cost-benefit analysis of multiple improvement opportunities. Of course, the building owner will typically have a keen attention to, as I noted earlier, the projected annual cash flow impact or the impact to the net operating income of the building. And they may want to look at that view, with and without financing options, and we'll support that level of analysis. And to my earlier point, experience shows often the high efficiency equipment will have a superior energy savings impact such that this combination of the high efficiency measures along with the low interest rate of the Energize Delaware program in the long term makes for a compelling investment opportunity. And that's in sum what we want to bring. That visibility is what we want to bring to the building owner in the course of providing the business technical assistance. And to demonstrate this, I have a couple screenshots here of some of the analytics, and I'll go through this and then we can open it up for any question and answers. So this first example shows what we call the EPIC summary, or it's a summary of the cost and benefit. So at the bottom of this image, you can see this building, which was about a 29,000 square foot medical office building, built around the year 2000. So the HVAC equipment, was 20-some years old. Let's say was at its end of useful life. So the building owner was considering an upgrade to the rooftop air conditioning units. This is a gas-fired space heating system, and they also had an opportunity for LED lighting. So in sum, what the analytics will do is create a energy savings units estimate at the improvement level or the equipment level for each of the options that the building owner is considering. And then, of course, once we have a estimate of the unit savings, we can convert that to a dollar or a cost savings, both in the first year and over the lifetime of the equipment. Each of the equipment options would carry a industry standard effective useful life rating. You see lighting rated for 12 years, rooftop units for 15 years, and a boiler type system for 22 years. So once those numbers are in place, then sort of the high level summary is this project and as I noted earlier, the high efficiency equipment typically is eligible for utility incentives. and I made a, what was my assumption here, that this would, I think, be about a 15% or so of gross cost. So the incentives would be equivalent to about 15% of the gross cost of the equipment. And so if you were evaluating this from an owner's perspective, you have a net installed cost of approximately $243,000. The estimated lifetime savings of those three improvements is $423,000. And therefore, if you had a long-term orientation, ownership orientation of this property, you would look at a net gain opportunity over the life of the equipment of about $180,000. Or the answer to a very common question of a building owner when they're beginning this journey to evaluate different options would pose the question, what percentage of the installed cost would the energy savings cover? And of course, if that is something greater than 100%, that usually would be considered a pretty good investment opportunity. In this case, you have a scenario where over the life of the equipment, the energy savings, would cover 174% of the installed cost. So what's wrong with that, right? So that's the type of visibility that the Business Technical Assistance Service and the related analytics will provide to building owners and their contractors. Moreover, once we are able to get an estimate of the energy unit savings, we can then calculate the greenhouse gas emissions or CO2 equivalent emissions reduction, and I'll speak to that a little bit more in a moment as well. Next, I wanted to further explore this notion of comparing alternative improvement options. And again, thinking of a building owner in this period of due diligence, this would be a very common situation for an HVAC equipment replacement driver. So one of the standardized set of analytics that EPIC reports out on is what we refer to as the scenario comparison. And it supports a base case and an alternate case, as I have here, and the key metrics that flow from these, which I wanted to take a couple minutes and review. So what I've done here is I've created a base case, which is a standard efficiency operating HVAC system. And the alternative scenario is high efficiency HVAC. So as you would be thinking about, how would I be evaluating the economic impacts of these two investment opportunities, this, one pager, sort of the key metrics is a good starting point. By that I mean, first evaluation would be what's the difference in the energy savings impact of these two different efficiency systems. And the high efficiency system, as you can see in this first line under project energy savings, is estimated to save 43% greater energy unit savings over the lifetime of the equipment than the standard efficiency. And that, of course, that sounds good, but of course most building owners are focused on the dollars and cents more than the energy units, right? So that leads us to this project cost section, and under the first line, the gross installed cost, the estimated cost for the standard HVAC is $175,000 versus the alternate high efficiency equipment at $207,000. So in other words, the high efficiency equipment carries a 18% price premium over the standard. As I noted earlier, right, that begs the question is, well, is there a value proposition there, right? Is there a return on investment for that 18% premium, and what might that look like, right? And so the first point in peeling that back a bit is the fact that the high efficiency equipment most likely will qualify for incentives. I assumed here again about whatever that is, 12, 15% or so incentive of the gross cost, or $25,000. So if you take that incentive into account, which of course the standard, minimally code compliant equipment, assume there's no incentive available there. So on a net installed cost basis, net installed cost meaning gross cost less any incentives, now that's reduced the high efficiency equipment investment to $181,000, or now our price premium is down from 17% to 3%, right? So now we've got less ground to make up on our energy savings. Then if you look at the first year savings estimate over the existing equipment, the standard equipment is estimated to save about $3,500 in that first year, where the high efficiency equipment, $5,700. In other words, the high efficiency equipment is generating almost a 70% more favorable energy savings outcome. And over the lifetime of the equipment, you see the difference, right? The high efficiency equipment generates a $46,000 more favorable, or about 60% greater dollar savings outcome over the life of the equipment. So on a net cost basis, which is the net installed cost less the lifetime savings, the net cost of the standard equipment would be $96,000, and the high efficiency equipment $55,000, or again about a $40,000 more favorable outcome for high efficiency. So if the owner had a long-term orientation at this property, these metrics would suggest the high efficiency equipment is the superior investment. And that's the kind of analytics and discussion that we routinely engage in with small building owners as they are evaluating these different types of equipment, and specifically the different efficiencies. I also like to point out under this last section, environmental and societal benefits, and this is really where Energize Delaware's mission comes to the fore. Of course, as Drew indicated, Energize Delaware has lots of programs. This just happens to be the latest one, and as Drew was indicating, focusing on the gap that currently exists in the small to mid-sized building owner sector. But frankly, there's the win-win opportunity here from the public policy point of view as well, meaning Energize Delaware, as part of their mission, seeks to bring this information to building owners so that they understand the win-win. And not only would these metrics argue for an investment in high efficiency equipment, which of course is going to have the energy unit and cost savings benefits that we just reviewed, but also look at the impact from a greenhouse gas reduction perspective, right? That the high efficiency equipment is going to generate about a 50% greater greenhouse gas emission impact over the life of this equipment. So these are the types of opportunities that exist, frankly, every day out in the small to mid-sized building owner sector. If you think about the life of this type of HVAC equipment, we'll focus on for a moment. Average replacement cycle would be 15 to 20 years. So that math would indicate something like 5 to 7% of all small buildings reach this end of HVAC equipment life challenge every year in the state of Delaware. And today, generally speaking, those building owners don't get access to these types of investment metrics, and not having visibility to that, they're more inclined to just focus on buying the lowest cost equipment that can comply with the local energy code, because they really aren't seeing the investment advantages in high efficiency. And that's where this business technical assistance will fill the gap and hopefully create more and more of these opportunities to create this win-win, right? The building owner gets the best financial impact from the decisions. The public policy is fulfilled. Energize Delaware facilitates this, right, to maximize the greenhouse gas emissions, the job creation impact if the building owner goes for more measures and more contractors are involved, and therefore the contracting community has the benefit of more project opportunities and higher efficiency equipment. So it's a sort of a win all around. One last point I wanted to make, then we'll open it up for questions, was on the financing. Again, this is a keen consideration. Let me see if I can enlarge this. This is a key consideration for a lot of small building owners. So what I've added to this scenario comparison is the financing section. And specifically what I wanted to share with you is another fairly common scenario comparison situation that we see, where again, let's take our same case. The HVAC system at the property is at end of life, and one consideration is standard HVAC. Of course, that standard HVAC typically will not achieve a savings to investment ratio greater than 1. The efficiency of the system is simply not such that it would achieve that kind of financial outcome, which is to say that type of project would not qualify for the Energize Delaware low interest commercial loan program. Now, if the building owner was not in a position to self-fund, which this would be about a $182,000 investment, they typically would go to their community bank or business banking relationship. And the terms of that kind of financing would probably be something like 20% down payment or owner contribution, a term length of say 5 to 7 years. I assumed 5 years here. And an interest rate somewhere between today's rates, probably 7.25% to 8%. Maybe, as Drew, you were alluding to earlier, maybe sort of higher than that. Not uncommon for us to see interest rates in the 8+ % these days, right? And so that's that base case scenario 1. Scenario 2 is a building owner in this perspective says, yeah, I think I'd like to see a scenario whereby I would qualify for the Energize Delaware low interest long-term commercial loan program. What might that look like, right? So here we created the alternative case, high efficiency HVAC plus an LED lighting upgrade. And that, as you see, produces enough energy savings. As a matter of fact, 365% greater energy savings than just the standard HVAC. And that produces a savings to investment ratio of 1.7, thereby qualifying for the Energize Delaware loan program, which, as Drew indicated, is at 4% and can be up to 20-year term. And perhaps best of all, for the small building owner, no owner contribution, i.e. 100% financing. And it's not uncommon for us to see small building owners taking advantage of this with no out-of-pocket cost, to execute that type of transaction. And that's a very compelling benefit, of course, to most small building owners. And moreover, so you think about the difference, that addition of the high efficiency equipment and LED lighting brings that total gross install cost of $306,000. But assume it qualifies for utility incentives, right? Bringing it down to $252K. So there's still a $69,000 additional price premium there, or 38% for this more comprehensive, more efficient project investment. But look at the look at the savings outcome, right? The lifetime savings of the standard HVAC equipment, again, $88,000 versus $430,000 of the more comprehensive project, which produces a net gain prior to interest cost of $178,000, while a $95,000 net cost of the standard. So again, same argument, right, would prevail, right? That if you had a long-term orientation at this property, the high efficiency equipment, right, investment would win the day. And speaking of the environmental impact, it's 460% greater greenhouse gas emissions reduction impact as a result of the alternate case. So these are the types of metrics. I guess the one other thing I would share, I'm just going to quickly go to our EPIC application to make this point. I'm in our EPIC application at the moment. You can see we have created these different scenarios. I'm going to look at this one with the HVAC, LED, and the Energize Delaware loan, and specifically call on the point I made earlier. I'm going to go into the funding scenario, where again, assume this building, that has LED, air conditioning, and space heating. It has an estimated savings to investment ratio of 1.7, right, which means the lifetime savings outweighs both the installed cost and the interest cost. And the point I want to make here is that the building owner typically wants to evaluate what's the annual cash flow impact. So by these, there's three key drivers here. The owner's contribution, again, which in this Energize Delaware loan is 0, 20-year term at a 4% interest rate. The chart over here on the right gives the picture of the outcome, where the blue bars, these are out for the 22-year life of all the equipment. The blue bars represent the energy savings contribution on an annual basis. The red bars represent the fixed annual loan repayments, which would be approximately $18,000 a year over the 20-year term. And the yellow indicates the annual net cash flow. And you can see the little dip here is, recall the lighting is rated for 12 years. So the assumption, which is conservative, of course, is that the savings from the lighting would cease to exist in year 13 forward. The rooftop air conditioning units are rated at 15 years and the space heating at 22. That's why you see this dip. But my point here is, in the building owner's due diligence, what they often lack today in this type of evaluation is looking at the estimated energy savings over the life of the measures. And in our case, that's this project savings column over the 22 years. Then they have an assumption of a $18,000 a year loan repayment for 20 years. And then the key question they're typically seeking to ask is, well, what's the annual cash flow impact, right? Cash flow meaning project savings less loan repayment obligation. And if you look at the first 5 years, that's an average of about $10,000 per year positive cash flow. So that generally would be, a comforting cushion, if you will, for the building owner. And then over the life of it sort of stays positive down to the end of the term of the lighting savings, goes negative for the term of out to the 20 years, with a lifetime savings of about positive cash flow of about $64,000. So these are the types of analytics that a building owner would be privy to. From the contractor point of view, usually our technical assistance team at SRS is engaging with the building owners' contractors, and I'll just look at one of these air conditioning measure. We'll look at what we're typically collaborating with the contractors to collect the specifications of the equipment that they're proposing. In other words, what's the new energy efficiency rating of the equipment? What's the efficiency rating of the existing equipment? And the delta between the two will allow the EPIC tool to calculate a percent savings that new air conditioning system would generate. We would apply that to the annual electricity use that's attributable to the space cooling system, and that allows us to calculate an annual unit and dollar savings. And then, of course, the contractor would provide their gross cost, and any we would be consulting with the contractor and the incentive representatives on what the incentive would likely be, and that is put into Epic that provides the those analytics that we just reviewed. So with that, I will answer any of your questions or comments. I think everybody is on mute at the moment, so if you'd like to pose any questions or have any specific comments, we welcome your input. All right, seeing Paul, did you have a comment? Question?
Maybe, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, as a commercial building owner, it's hard for us to reap the rewards as much because the electric meter is always in someone else's name, whether it be solar or HVAC or what have you. I don't know the answer to this. I'm just telling you one of the challenges we come up with, because we would like to implement a lot of this stuff. But, you know, even with like a solar system, we could do it on our house meters with no problem, but I can't. I have a lot of rooftops, and it's a shame that I can't just load them up. I would have to do individual systems for each tenant. Then a tenant moves out, another tenant moves in, splits it into 3 stores, and now it's all messed up. So I struggle to find a way to really make those kind of things work for us as the landlord. It's great for the environment and all that stuff, and we've done a lot of things, but in order to do it more globally, we kind of struggle with those things. I don't know if there's answers, but just kind of thought I'd voice my, you know, speed bumps that we run into.
Yep. Yeah, the so-called split incentive, right, between the property owner and the tenant. One area, and I noted earlier, with the commercial property assessed clean energy program, I'm not sure if that's a program that you're familiar with or not, Paul, but the form of that financing is what's referred to as assessment-based financing. So when a financing is entered into by the property owner, and these are private capital providers that are providing the funding here, a assessment is recorded on the property, similar to a special assessment, let's say a sewer district or water treatment district, right, that you might be familiar with, where local municipality builds infrastructure, your building is served by that infrastructure, so you receive a so-called involuntary assessment, right, with a payback schedule. PACE is a voluntary version of that, right, where a private property owner can voluntarily take on an assessment. The reason I raise that, because in the CPACE financing product, it's not unusual for us to see a owner of a retail or even multifamily building that would have the challenges that you just described, that tenant, tenant pays the bill, right, and therefore hard for the owner to recoup. You could develop a agreement with the tenants, right, to share in that assessment repayment, right? So let's say it's a scenario like we just described, that there's an energy savings benefit to you as the owner, both for your common areas, right, and your tenants, but yet the tenant would have a pro rata portion of the assessment payment added to their lease, right? So they would contribute to the repayment, but the net would be that their energy savings would outweigh their repayment obligation.
Mm-hmm.
From your owner perspective, of course, in that kind of a project, I didn't emphasize this on the earlier report, but maybe I'll go back for it just for emphasis here. You see the property value increase. So from an owner perspective, of course, you likely would only be doing that kind of a project, certainly rooftops, right, if you were towards the end of useful life, right? Therefore needed to make that investment, that upgrade. And that would have an energy savings contribution to net operating income, as you would well know. The value of the property would be at a capitalization rate multiple of that, energy savings, right? So there's a way to value what's the improvement doing to the value of the property. So that is a way that we seek to address that split incentive with that type of financing product. Drew,
Okay.
did you have something to add to that matter?
No, I was just going to say, in this example, I think, CPACE would make a lot of sense. And certainly we've had, several come through this year. But I think in that example, CPACE is probably the way to go.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions or comments?
So you guys will actually come to properties and give evaluations at no cost?
Well, we do the evaluation on a remote basis. Typically, the party that's going to the property would be the prospective contractor, right? So
Okay.
we typically would be collaborating with a contractor or contractors, right? So let's take the scenario you were describing, Paul. Let's say you had a retail property and it was in need of rooftop unit replacement and maybe an LED lighting opportunity. Typically, you would engage separate contractors, right? An HVAC contractor and a lighting contractor to come out, do a site survey. Often the HVAC firm may even be the firm that does your routine maintenance. So they, frankly, would be familiar with the existing systems, right? They likely would provide a proposal. Usually you would provide those introductions of those contractors to SRS's technical assistance team. I want to introduce Joe Freehill here in a minute, who will be the key point of contact for the Business Technical Assistance Program. And we would begin to collaborate with the contractor, collect the data that would be in their proposal. We use the EPIC tool, as I just noted, to produce some of those analytics. And depending on your interest in, number of improvements with financing, without financing, et cetera, we would develop those analytics in collaboration with the contractor and deliver those analytics back to you prior to your investment decision, right, to support, as the theme I was mentioning earlier, of your due diligence as you're looking at, what is the optimal investment given the needs of the building, right, and the financial impacts.
Okay.
And on the line with me today is my colleague, Joe Freehill. Joe is the director of this new Energize Delaware Business Technical Assistance Program. His contact information is here. We do plan to circulate this deck to each of you that have attended today, and we'll also likely post it to the website in the coming week. And you can feel free to reach out to Joe. Those of you that are on the line from the various contracting disciplines, you can think of projects that you may have in your existing pipeline, or maybe even, so I was alluding to a moment ago, HVAC contracting firms where you provide equipment maintenance for certain building owners that are either at this point or approaching this point of end of equipment life and could benefit, from looking at the cost benefit analysis of different investment opportunities. Please feel free to reach out to us. Joe will be the point of contact, and we can commence with doing those analytics, again, at no cost to you or the building owner. All right. So it looks like No other questions or comments. Drew, would you like to have any concluding comments?
I just want to thank everyone for attending today. We're excited to launch the business technical assistance. It's been a work in progress. I've been here 10 months, and it's something that we've been very interested in from the start. And so I'm looking forward to moving forward with many projects.
All right. Likewise, thank you again for making the time for this introduction, and we'll look forward to collaborating with you to advance these opportunities. Thanks again. Have a good weekend.